join palms and repeat after me. I take refuge in the Buddha. I take refuge in the Dharma. I take refuge in the Sangha. Keeping the palms joined. Put palms down. All right, good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Nice to see you all here. Thanks for showing up. This practice is a funny thing because there's this word karma that we often hear and explore and talk about in Buddhist teachings. And it's also, I think, one of the most misunderstood words in Buddhist teachings. And I talk about this quite a bit. But karma, the word karma literally means action. And very often in a Western context, we think karma is what goes around, comes around. And that is not the case. Now, I'm sure nobody in here, but have you ever had somebody that you just really didn't like and then something bad? Look at the smiles already. I always love when you weren't the only one, whoever I just caught, right? You always love how, I always love when that happens. But something bad happens to someone we don't like. And then secretly or out loud, we're like, oh, they got their karma, as if it was coming to them. Anyone ever done that? If your hand's not up, you're lying. Now, the flip side to that is, and this is where karma, that kind of rationale of karma goes out the window, is any of you in this room ever done anything that you shouldn't have done and then had something good happen to you, right? Yeah, thank you for the honesty, the one person in the room. So there we are, understanding that karma's not do good and good happens or do bad and bad happens. Karma being action is literally just what happens. Removing good and bad from it. My master used to talk about karma, the word, looking at it as neutral, meaning it's not about good and bad. It's not about duality, which is the world. If you look at Buddhist teachings in the Diamond Sutra, it talks about duality. All of Buddhist teachings are based in the fact that we have an attachment to the sense of self, and we see everybody else as separate from ourselves. Now, we're not all one. I'm not one of those new age folks that's going to be like, we're all one. We're not one. We are completely different people. Different physical bodies, different thoughts, different actions. But we are all intertwined and connected via our karma. And what that means is all of our karma put us here in this moment. So whatever has happened in your life, good, bad, right, wrong, all of that goes out the window. And the reality is your karma, your actions put you here. And that could be as simple as waking up today and saying, I'm going to go to the Dharma Bum Temple. I'm going to go to meditation. That's where, is a very simple realization. That's your karma. Now, on a much deeper level, what happened when you were 7 years old also put you here. So your entire life's experiences And for some of you, that might have been like today. I'm not sure how old everybody is here, but right? That literally is what put you here. All of your actions in your life put you here. And the practice, and it's often referred to as, and you'll hear this said different ways, but to be mindful of your karma. Buddha taught we generate karma 3 ways: body, speech, mind. What we think, what we say, and what we do. And so everything we think, everything we say, and everything we do creates the next immediate moment. And that moment, what we think and say and do in that moment, creates our next immediate moment. And then our entire life goes by. And our entire life truly is nothing more than a trillion immediate moments happening one after the other. And the reason we talk about being mindful of our karma, be aware, I've heard people say be careful, because your karma can be dangerous. But to be mindful and aware, to not make it sound so like daunting and scary, to be mindful and aware of your karma is to begin to understand that whatever mess or situation you are dealing with right now, you did it. Now here's the beauty of that. What that allows us to do is take ownership of it and change things if we don't like the current situation we're in. Now, of course, that comes with a million stories and justifications and rationalizations and excuses, not to mention blame. But at the end of the day, you and only you are responsible for every single thing that you think, you say, and you do. Now, to wrap up this thought, the challenge and the difficulty is for probably all of us in this room, looking back at the history of our lives, have many moments in our lives where we say, I wish I hadn't done that. Sometimes we say it immediately, sometimes we say it a year later, sometimes 20 years later, we're like, oh man, that was really dumb. But at some point in time, we've all had, I'm guessing, moments in our lives where we look back and say, I wish I could have done that differently. And here's this cold, harsh, true reality. There's not a darn thing you can do about that. It's done. But here's the beauty of understanding and, dare I say, utilizing, controlling, and I know I always talk about letting go of control, but controlling your karma means what you think, what you say, and what you do in this moment and every additional moment going forward will drastically impact the rest of your life. And you have 2 choices. I mean, you got a million, but let's just make it simple. You have 2. Allow all the past choices, past decisions, past pains, past traumas, past excuses, past difficulties impact you to where your choices that you make right now are painful and harmful to self and others. Or make decisions that are coming from a place of loving kindness, compassion, wisdom, understanding. That's what you have the opportunity and ability to do right now and every single moment moving forward. And if we can kind of wrap our minds around our ability to really dictate what world and life for ourselves we create going forward, everything you experience can be a beautiful moment. And I'll close with this thought, just since it might be sitting on someone's head, the challenge is everyone in this room and everyone in this city and everyone in this world is doing the exact same thing. They're making their own choices, their own thoughts, their own words, their own actions. And here's what you can't do. Control theirs. If we could, that would make everything super simple. But we can't. So we default to being mindful and aware of what we actually have any control over whatsoever, and that's ourselves. And the reason we do it is because we don't want to spend any more of our life miserable, or sad, or angry, or depressed. So continue to cultivate this path and this practice that helps you be mindful of the choices you make in the present moment. Because the ones in the past are done. They're gone. So All right, so with that, we'll start with the meditation practice. For those who are joining us virtually, good morning or evening or afternoon, wherever you are. Thanks for joining us. A couple things to tell you before we begin. Nothing's going to happen to you, right? You're not going to float away. You're not going to have any mystical, magical experiences. The mind that races all day long is not going to shut off. Don't judge your practice. Meaning, don't ask yourself, is this working or not working? Are you doing it right? Are you doing it wrong? You're just going to sit and breathe. You'll hear sounds inside, outside. This is life. Life is filled with chaos, and this practice is learning to get quiet and still within all of the chaos. Excuse me. Posture. You just want to be comfortable. If you're on a cushion, often helps slide into the front third. Pushing the stomach forward allows the back to straighten. If you're on a bench or chair, however you're seated, just trying to sit up straight if you can. Again, relaxing the shoulders. Hands are on the knees or lap. I will guide us as we begin, and we'll settle into a little bit of silence. Most important, do not expect anything. We're just going to sit and breathe. And starting with the eyes closed, if comfortable, or slightly open. Mouth is open or closed. We'll start with taking 3 deep breaths, slowly. And eventually, settle into a natural rhythm of the breath. Noticing the mind as it wanders, jumping from thought to thought. Start with gently guiding the attention, focus, to the stomach or chest. Breathing in, feel them rise. Breathing out, they fall. Simply continue this practice, observing sensation of breath. As the mind wanders, lost in thought, recognize it. Release that thought. Return attention, focus to the breath. Breathing in, follow breath in. Breathing out, follow breath out. letting go of expectations. Letting go of judgments from the practice. Just sitting. Breathing. Keeping the mind alert. Aware of each sound. Each thought. Each physical sensation. Yet concerned with nothing but sitting, breathing. And with the body still, rested, and the speech quiet, aware of all sounds. And the mind learning to settle. Know what it's like to just sit and breathe. flowing with each breath. There's nothing else to do. Nowhere else to go. And no one else to be. Everything beautiful, exactly as it is. Sitting, breathing. And once again, taking 3 deep breaths, slowly. As you slowly open the eyes, slowly beginning to move. And most important, with the practice of meditation, is to recognize how you feel now, immediately after. Compare this to how you typically feel throughout your day. Recognize the difference, if there is one. Ask yourselves how you prefer to feel every day for the rest of your life. And realize however you feel now, if it's quiet, calm, and still, or a busy mind, racing mind, whatever you're sitting with at this moment, has nothing to do with anything I said. It's nothing to do with how we sit and hold the hands or cross the legs. It's nothing to do with the sounds around us or anything else for that matter. It has everything to do with our own mind and our own mind's reaction to an external condition. This is what the Buddha called pratitya samuppada, means dependent origination. This is the basis of the Buddha's awakening. The word Buddha simply means awakened. He was a human being no different than any one of us, who began to understand why he suffered, why he got angry, sad, depressed, stressed, anxious. He began to understand the causal relationship of all phenomena. And what that means very simply for all of us, regardless of where you come from or what you believe in or where you think you're going, your whole life is filled with things that happen. And we react. More stuff happens, more reactions. That's what we get. This practice is simply learning what it's like to respond to something quietly, peacefully, still. Because for most of us, the way you responded to the last 20 minutes is quite different from how you respond to everything else that's happening throughout your day. And all we're working on is closing the gap to where the way you feel now is closer to how you feel always. Just as driven, motivated, productive, successful, whatever that means to you in your respective lives. But with a mind that's steady, clear, focused, distracted by nothing, disturbed by no one. It's not an easy practice. It's not necessarily fun. It's not an escape, as often people think it is. It is direct perception into the present moment. And very often that present moment is incredibly unpleasant and difficult and painful. And so this practice is learning to be with that unpleasant moment. We spend so much time trying to fix, change, control, manipulate everything and everyone around us. Once we stop doing that, we work on changing our mind and our reaction to the world around us, life gets simpler. But it's a practice. It's not an easy one, and it takes time. But it's a free one. Meditation is free. Buddhist practice is free. It's just sitting, breathing, getting to know the nature of your own mind, watching your emotions as they arise, knowing that they will pass, watching them come back, knowing that they will pass, and doing our best to not allow our emotions to completely ruin our lives. Because we can, and we often do. And many of us already have. But the beauty of that is that's all in the past. So we have this moment and every moment going forward to continue to work on being mindful and aware of what we think, what we say, and what we do. So these strong emotions that tend to destroy us and crush us and make us feel as if everyone has done us wrong, we see them for what they are. They're just thoughts that bring emotional feelings, physical reactions to those emotional feelings. And then we choose how to respond. This is not easy. It's not quick. It's not 3 weeks and then all of a sudden you got it figured out. It's not 6 months and smooth sailing from there. It is a lifelong practice and process of learning to see the thoughts and emotions as they arise and to be with them. And the meditation is important because in those times where you see your emotions getting the best of you, you come back to the breath, right? You can't always run here at Saturday at 11 o'clock or whatever day or time or night you meditate. Because as I always say, we're not meditating to be good at meditation. We're doing this practice so when we learn slowly, year after year, to find peace and comfort and safety in our own breath. Not in something else, not in someone else, not in another place or another person or another whatever, but finding peace, comfort, safety, protection in our breath. The beauty of that is that breath is always there. And when we can condition and train our minds to find as much peace and happiness and joy in our own breath, we don't need to go anywhere. And when emotions arise and we feel like they're crushing us, we just come back to our breath, and that's our safe space. But it takes a while to get there. So we keep practicing. So I'll pause there, just open up to questions. For me, I really prefer to respond to questions. Meditation, Buddhist practice, anything you're sitting with. And again, for those who maybe jumped on a little later, welcome everybody who's joining virtually. There's a chat box on your screen. Feel free to type your name in as you are. And if you have any thoughts or questions, you can share them there. There's a comment here from Bernard, listening online from Pennsylvania. In my backyard with the wind blowing and leaves gently moving and at peace. Thank you. Right on. Well, what part of Pennsylvania? I lived in Philly for a year. Don't hold that against me. Just curious where you are in Pennsylvania, but thanks for joining. Thanks for sharing. So we'll open up to questions, thoughts. Yeah.
Hi, it's
Hi.
great to be here.
Great to see you.
I haven't been here for a while. I really was sitting in the community, so it's great to be here again. And I smiled when you talked about not liking someone. So the story is that I'm moving into a new place and my puppy barked in my car and the neighbor next door instantly came out and slid his glasses down his nose and asked me if I knew about rules. And I was so taken aback, I felt defensive. And I had met him the week before and he was real friendly, so it really threw me. And he continued to stare me down, so I thanked him for making me feel so welcome. So then I felt really shitty about that. And I decided, okay, I need to go back and try to make this right. When I went back, so in the meantime, of course, I'm not liking this man in my life. And
Right.
He's making me feel uncomfortable, I'm looking for a new place, I've got all these stories going through my head. When I went back, I apologized to his wife, and then I apologized to him when he came to the door, saying, I'm really sorry that you got distressed. I assure you I'm going to be a good neighbor. The wife is wonderful, and the man, I realize, has dementia. He has no recall that this even happened.
Wow.
And then by the time I'm beginning to leave, he gets confused. In his mind, he flips it, and he says to his wife, well, she got me in trouble, what a bitch. I'm like, trying one more time and say, really, I'm so sorry I upset you. And I realized, like, there was such a shift in my mind about how I felt towards him and the whole situation, and I no longer felt threatened.
Yeah.
So my action to just go back and try to make it right made a huge difference.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. So that's why I was chuckling when you brought up someone you don't like, because I spent a good number of days not liking that man.
How many days passed between when it happened and when you went back?
It was about a week.
Okay.
Because I'm going back and forth between properties.
Yeah. So you spent about a week hating him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not really hating it, feeling threatened, right? That sort of little kid response to, you're going to get me in trouble, and I don't want to be in trouble, I'm moving into a new place.
Wow.
Like that.
That's great. I mean, yeah. Funny how when we, and not even that's the whole story, but funny how when we actually know more of a story that is more in line with the ultimate truth of reality, not complete, but at least closer to it, meaning there's the story in your head and there's the reality of what's actually going on. And these two things, almost every day of our lives, are drastically different. But we stick in, and you've been at this stuff for years, so you get it now. We stick in the story in our heads. And crazy how, and how long was that one interaction where you came to the car and your dog was barked once? It was probably what, like 30 seconds or a minute or something?
It was maybe more about 3 minutes.
Okay.
No more than 5. It's not a long period of time.
But a very brief interaction can then trigger a story that we carry around with us for a week. And the beauty is, yes, you felt the guilt, you felt the shame, or whatever the emotions were that led you to go back, which I think is beautiful. But I really think, just to highlight for all of us, to recognize that we are doing what you just shared every day of our lives. And many of these stories that we're carrying around in our head weren't things that just happened a week ago or whatever. They were things that happened 20 years ago, 40 years ago. I mean, it depends on how old we all are in this room, right? So these are stories that we're carrying around with us. And we don't really know the truth. We only know our perception, our side of the story. And we don't typically like thinking that our side of the story is maybe wrong. Because as we're telling ourselves that story, and as we get further and further away from the actual moment of whatever occurred, the story, even when we see it, it's not reality. It's our perception of reality. And then as time goes on, the story shifts and changes, and we rationalize it, we justify it, we, make it fit our what we want. And then something like this comes up and just like, boom, slams at us, and we're like, wow, there's so much more to this story. So, yeah, thanks for sharing, Martin. Go ahead.
What I notice is that I spent a lot of time in my life in fear of what their side of the story might be, what they're saying. So
about you?
Yeah.
They're saying some nasty things. And they're saying some beautiful things. And everywhere in between. Right? That's the reality. None of it is correct. It's just their perception. You know how many terrible, nasty things people have said about me in my lifetime? A lot. Well, thank you for agreeing with me. Oh, you read my story. Okay, yeah. A lot. Yeah. And that's something we all have to live with. And you know how many wonderful, beautiful things people have said to me or about me? A lot. What does all that mean? Nothing. That's just their perception. I am neither the terrible person that they say I am, nor am I the great person that they say I am. I am neither. It's just their stories. And I can only speak from my ignorant view and lens and perception, but I believe what I've learned from this practice is that's what is going on with all of us, as we are roaming around, concerned so much with what we think those people are saying about us. And we think it means something. But it's really challenging what? Our ego, our sense of self, our view of our self-worth and how important we think we are and what we think we deserve. Right? The world will judge you. They have been forever, and they're not stopping anytime soon. To me, Buddhist practice, I say this a lot, but it doesn't solve anything. It doesn't fix anything. It helps you see the reality of what goes on. And that is every moment of your life, there's people judging you, talking about you, saying things about you all along the spectrum. Right now, they're sitting in some other meditation class asking questions because of the stuff you've done to them. So, yeah. Other thoughts, questions? There's a question here. It says, powerful stuff with the many different facets of life. Is spirituality the most important thing to humans? I don't know. I mean, and if I gave you some answer, I wouldn't believe me anyways. I don't know that spirituality is the most important thing. I think, as I was asked a question recently, and it said, the question was, if I had could fly a blimp overhead for a day and could put something on the side of it, what would I say? And my initial reaction, and this pops into my head right now, is be kind. And some could say kindness is a spiritual practice, and in essence, we could say everything is a spiritual practice, but I'm not one Even though I sit here, in a Buddhist place, I'm not one who considers myself a deeply religious or spiritual person at all. I consider myself someone who just tries every day to be kinder than I was yesterday, and that's very difficult. So spirituality, religion, these things mean different things to different people, but I think kindness and understanding is incredibly important, well beyond a spiritual practice, because spiritual practice can also be an illusion and a facade and a front. And there's a great book by Chogyam Trungpa called Cutting Through Spiritual Materialism. It's an incredible text about how we can get lost in our kind of, the Buddhist ego and look at me, I'm Buddhist. So, yeah, thanks for the question. Yeah.
So where in Pennsylvania?
Oh yeah, thank you. says the Pennsylvania. Yeah. I don't think we got a response. Maybe.
Another Pennsylvania.
Yeah. Bernard, we have another Pennsylvania guy here who wants to know where you are. So please don't leave us hanging. We got a couple. Yeah.
So on the subject of what other people think about me is none of my business.
Yeah.
So I'm a courteous driver. So when I see somebody trying to get out of the driveway or something, I stop and give them the right of way because I'm courteous, right? But I do that, and a guy behind me is honking and giving me the finger because that's not courteous to him. He's trying to get somewhere. So what I realized that both in that moment, I'm a kind person and an a-hole.
Yeah.
What side of that vehicle they're on.
Totally.
I have no control. So the karma is to do the right action for me, which is to relinquish, the rights of way to this person. But I'm still an a-hole to them. I can't control them. What other people think of me, good or bad, is what I'm hearing. So I have no control. It's really none of my business.
Yeah. Great metaphor.
Well,
Yeah,
it's
I will.
real. I mean, it's like in the moment, it's like I think, look how kind I am. And they're like, what a jerk you are.
Yeah. So true. Yeah. That's a Sharpsville?
Sharpsville.
Did I say that right?
Does that help?
Between Erie and Pittsburgh.
Oh, that part of it.
Sorry, Bernard, you got a couple thumbs down. I tried. But we're still glad you're here, representing the state of Pennsylvania. Which part of Pennsylvania are you from? We'll let Bernard know. Was it Philly?
I live in Philly, but I'm a Jersey guy.
A Jersey guy from Philly and another one in Philly. Philly, we got a lot of Philly people here. Oh my goodness. Go Steelers. We're going to put a limit on the amount of Philly people. Like I said, I did live there for a year, so I know. All right, other thoughts, questions?
I guess I'm just curious in just a very vague sense, like what your thoughts are on shame in general, just because like in any kind of somatic or energy healing, shame is like the lowest vibration, like the emotion you're trying to surpass.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just curious of what your thoughts are in general.
You want me to vaguely touch on shame?
I'm not giving you anything specific.
Sure, okay.
Just like what your thoughts are.
Understood. So the question is around shame. And let me ask you this real quick before I respond any further. Are you speaking, when you ask that question, is it coming from a place in reference to the shame you feel towards yourself for actions you've done?
Yes.
Okay. That was my initial thought, that was it as well. I just wanted to confirm, because often we can feel shame towards others, the shame on you type of thing. So my thoughts on shame towards self. Buddhist teachings, there's two wings, often it's said, wisdom and compassion. And that's what makes Buddhism fly, right? Wisdom and compassion. This is Kuan Yin in the middle, represents compassion, and that's Manjushri, represents wisdom. And this is the heart, and this is Samathapadra, which is diligence, great effort. So with great effort, we work to cultivate compassion and wisdom. Now, often, potentially overlooked, but I think most important with compassion is self-compassion. And super difficult to have compassion towards others when we lack compassion towards ourselves. Now, when we look at shame, for me, and as a practice, I mean, this is something I had to work through for years, is understanding that I had done a lot of terrible things. And I felt a lot of shame for these things for a long time. And with that shame came anger towards self and hatred towards self. Now, there's this vicious cycle because it was anger that led me to do the things that I did, which caused more anger, which then caused the shame, which caused more hatred and more anger, and then you're just stuck in this vicious cycle. So the practice of self-compassion is critical, where I suggest as a practitioner, one must understand that if we don't begin to have love and kindness and compassion and forgiveness towards ourselves, we will be stuck in shame forever. Now, the challenge is to have self-compassion and forgiveness towards self, but also understand that that doesn't excuse, not suggesting you were saying this, I'm the one go rambling, but not suggesting that having forgiveness towards self excuses what we did. Nor does it mean, okay, well, what I did, it's okay now. You know, I've forgiven myself for it. Well, they're still hurting. Even if it was 30 years ago and they've completely moved on, there was a moment in time where they were hurt. So self-compassion and forgiveness is important to help us break through the shame and guilt that we might carry around. Because if we carry around a tremendous amount of shame, and I put the word guilt as well, because that's what comes when I hear or feel shame, it makes me think of guilt as well. I feel shameful, I feel guilty, I feel sad for things I've done. And as I talked about at the beginning, I can't change them. But I also know going forward, to live a life where all you walk around with is a feeling of shame and guilt and disappointment in yourself, that sucks. Right? Is that how you feel now?
Like how I think about shame.
Is that how you, when you think about, I mean, unless you're just asking this question for a friend, but if you're asking this, my thought is that you're asking about shame because, and I don't want specifics, but that there's something that you feel shame about in your life.
Yeah, I would say more just like flaws that I have that repeat, and I'm trying to like get better at it. It's just like hard for me.
Yeah. And how do you judge yourself about what you call flaws? I wouldn't call them flaws, but you call them flaws.
Yeah, I mean,
I would call them parts of your beautiful personality and essence of being alive. That's what being human is.
Yeah.
But how do you feel about, do you judge yourself for having what you call flaws?
I do. I'm trying not to, but it's
I understand you're trying not to, and I understand that you might also have difficulty with actually realizing you do carry a lot of shame with you.
Mm-hmm.
Because as soon as I asked that question, you completely kind of, you asked about shame, and then when I said, do you feel shame? You were like, nah, I'm curious about my flaws.
Mm-hmm.
I heard you have a lot of shame in your life from the way you asked the question. I could be completely wrong. I don't know anything about you.
Yeah.
What I'm hearing is that you might be afraid to actually recognize that you have shame.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think like I work right in therapy, of course, and like I don't want to, and I've been working so hard at it.
Yes.
It's to the point where you're like, well, how long do I have to keep working at this for? You know?
Yes, but again, you don't want it. You're working through it through therapy. You're doing your best to get through it. But what are you trying to work through? Shame.
Yeah.
And you still have difficulty saying that you have shame in your life.
Yeah.
That was my original point, which is even deeper than what you're working through. My point is you're having difficulty with honoring and owning the fact that you've done some stuff that you feel very shameful about. And that is the first reason you're having difficulty working through it. Because I don't know that you fully accepted and embraced the fact that you've done some stuff that you feel shameful about.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
This practice is brutal honesty with our own madness. Therapy is great. It will help you talk through and solve a lot of issues and problems in our lives. I just said to somebody recently, therapy and kind of Western therapy and Buddhist practice, they don't replace each other. They complement each other very well. They're very different. But where I see Buddhist practice really complementing therapy is that Buddhist practice is a mirror. And if one was going to go into a therapy session, I would suggest they sit with themselves and say, am I being really honest with what I'm telling my therapist? You know how many people lie to their therapist because they're worried about what their therapist is going to think of them? Right, you're sure you do too. I just wanted to repeat that for everybody else. Like, and I don't mean this in an offensive way. I'm glad we can laugh about this, but do we realize, and you're not the only one in this room, but do we realize how difficult and ridiculous that is? That there you are at therapy, and you're trying to work through stuff, and you're lying to your therapist because you're afraid of what your therapist is going to think of you. That's not honesty. That's fear. If we want to work through this type of stuff, be honest. I have shame. Why? Because I did X. Why? Because I was in pain and suffering and ignorant or foolish or whatever the reasons are we did things. Be real with these things. And if we're real with them, then we can work through them. But if we ignore them, or we, kind of spin them, because nobody wants to paint a picture of themselves that isn't beautiful very often. I mean, have you ever taken like 10 pictures of yourself or been in 10 pictures, and then when you go to post it on social media, pick the worst one? Right? I mean, I'm going to close with this thought, but like, I notice I do this because leading groups, all this stuff, I take a lot of group photos and blah, 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 or whatever it is. And I'll take maybe 4 or 5 of the group. And then when I go to like post it and share it or whatever, I'm literally looking through it, trying to see, okay, which is the best one? Right? Or if you take a picture of yourself and you're going to post that, you're not like, well, I look ugly in this one, I'm going to throw this one up on my, whatever. So we're always trying to present ourselves in the best light. And I'm not suggesting that this is a bad thing to do or a wrong thing to do. I'm suggesting that we ask ourselves, why? And it actually kind of comes back to the earlier comments and questions about being concerned with what people think about us. And for me, if you want to really cultivate on a Buddhist path and practice, you have to cut through. It's called the Tibetan Buddhism, the Manjushri. So actually, right above your head, that's really funny. So that is Manjushri, the Bodhisattva of wisdom. It's the same Bodhisattva as this guy up here. This is more of a Taiwanese style where he tamed the lion. The lion is like a crazy wild lion, and with wisdom, he tamed it to be a little playful, cute lion. That's a Tibetan form of Manjushri, and he holds a sword, and it's considered the sword of wisdom. The sword of wisdom that cuts through the ignorance. The sword says it doesn't matter which picture you post. So, all right, I'm going to close on that. So we'll join palms. May the benefit of this practice be shared with all beings in all directions. May all beings be at peace. May all be free from suffering. May any merit gained from this practice be transferred to those who need it most. May all beings be at peace. May all be free from suffering. All right, so a few quick announcements before you all head out. Thanks for being here. My name is Jeff. I'm a Dharma bum. We opened up this temple 17 years ago to introduce Buddhist practice to those who show up. Those of us who lead, we're not monks, we're not nuns, we're not gurus, we're not masters, we're not teachers, we're not looking for students. We're just practitioners doing our best to take our unenlightened approach to Buddhist teachings and share it with all of you enlightened ones out there. So thanks for showing up. Just about every night we have different practices going on, different people leading from different Buddhist traditions or backgrounds. We have a recovery sangha, so anyone battling addiction, drugs, alcohol, or whatever it might be, that meets a handful of times a week. So always something going on. The only thing out of the ordinary, two things out of the ordinary I'll announce, or just a little bit different. We have started this year, we started what we call a social sangha, which was, for years people come to classes and they go and we have food distribution, people get to meet, but we don't have a lot of things where people necessarily get to interact a lot with each other. So we started a social sangha where they plan monthly events where you get to kind of go to things together and, also interact on a human social level while, exploring some form of practice or some, event or whatever it might be. So June 18th, I think it is, the social sangha is going to Deer Park Monastery, the Thich Nhat Hanh tradition who recently passed. So they'll be going to Deer Park. The only catch on this is since COVID, as many places have changed, and you used to be able to just show up. Now an RSVP is required. So we're planning a social sangha event, but you actually have to register an RSVP on your own. You can't just post on our Facebook page, says I want to go. All right, that won't get you in. So the other trick to this is June 13th is when RSVPs open up on Deer Park's website. And they fill up pretty quickly. So if you want to go, June 13th, that morning is the day that you should go on to Deer Park's website, look up Day of Mindfulness, and RSVP for yourself to go for the June 18th event. There's a flyer up outside on the wall there. It's also on the website and everything. But and the other thing is Alex is taking a break. He's been leading our loving kindness practice for a while. It's been around us since 2007. And so we have Bettina. She's amazing. She's going to start a beautiful class on Wednesday nights, starting in July on the Fourth Foundation of Mindfulness and the Four Brahmavara. So that'll be Wednesday nights at 7, starting in July. But what that means is for June, you're stuck with me on Wednesday nights, also leading classes. So I don't know what the topic's going to be. Last Wednesday was a special class, so I was told to make this Wednesday night a very special class. So so far the topic for Wednesday night is it's going to be a very special night. So hope to see you there. Buddha for you is downstairs. If you need anything, if you want to stay in garden and help clean, please do. Thank y'all.